I'm Dylan Radigan. I've interviewed nearly every CEO and most world leaders during the past 25 years. And now I'm bootstrapping. I'm turning my attention to the new CEOs and the irrepressible entrepreneurs leading the next generation of innovation in the world. Welcome back to Tasty Live. I am Dylan Radigan. Time for another episode of Bootstrapping. Stefan White's our guest. Jetson, 87, Stella Center. We Are Giant.
Lots.
Man,
too many.
A company making machine. Man after my own heart. You have a similar list, Stefan. You'd be like, oh, it's not that weird. So the point is, you like to originate ideas and you like to help other people originate ideas. And then you like to help people, either yourself or other people, when you're originating ideas, start to organize some of the key assets to manifest them to actually exist.
That's basically right. And sometimes I get more involved and sometimes I'm less involved. With Jetson, I'm super involved still. That's a microbiome company, probiotics, the world's first seasonal probiotic. It was very exciting. We launched it 3 years ago, still is. We're actually launching more into kind of general gut health now, because gut health is a huge, huge thing out there in the market, but people just don't know how to do much with it. So we've got a brand new set of products that's going into Walmart here in a couple of months, which will be great. So thousands of stores across the country will have access to Jetson probiotics. We have a new IBS telemedicine product too, called Jetson Plus. So for the 35 million people out there that have IBS, they're able to actually go and go to a doctor online, get diagnosed, get treated, get prescriptions right to their house very simply. So really the idea behind that one was to create this kind of gut health for all company, if you will, that allows folks to actually get healthier, starting with the gut early on. So that's an example of what I'm very involved with right now. And
then, and I want to get into the details. Obviously, that's sort of your hero. That's your favorite child.
No, can't say that.
But I am interested in this piece of it, though, because I think that every single person in the world, and to one degree or another, is an originator. They have an idea for this thing or that thing or this thing or that thing. And that's sort of what part of the joy of the human experience, right, is the idea, the ability that you can assimilate some set of interactions or observations to then come up with a thesis for something that you think should exist. Right? You're like, we should invent painkiller for dentistry. You're like, thank God somebody thought of that. Right? Or you're like, oh, deliver my food.
Right. Exactly. Kind of the same thing. Painkillers and food delivery, very similar.
but there is a big, and then this is not a critique either. I don't want it to come off in that way. There's a difference between the people that are able to conceive an idea to originate and then go through the process of origination to the point where something comes to exist. And I tend to think one of the places people fall down is they don't ask for help quick enough. So I want
years and years ago, I remember talking to somebody and they said, kind of, what's your secret to whatever level of success I've ever had? And the answer was, to me, I always give anybody who calls me or asks me a question 15 minutes. Like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you call me, and I'll give you 15 minutes, because I have found more often than not that either I can be helpful to that person in 15 minutes or they can help me somehow in those 15 minutes. And I think you're absolutely right. Thinking that you're the smartest guy in the room, which is something I learned early on, I was not, especially working at Microsoft for so many years and being around the smartest people on the planet. Having that humility to ask for help, recognizing the areas where you're weak, recognizing your blind spots, which is really hard to do, especially if you have a huge ego, like a lot of entrepreneurs have to have.
And they're called blind spots for a reason.
Yeah, right. And they're hard
called the spots you can see.
Right. My wife, luckily, will show me all the ones I have quite consistently, so it works out well. But there is that level of. I was doing a lot of reading by Jung, the famous psychiatrist, recently, and just that notion of, as you especially enter the second act of your life, really figuring out what is it that's important to you, what are the stories you've told yourself, what are the fictions and artifices you put up, all to your point, which is, if you're starting a new company or a new concept or a new whatever, being able to understand the kind of edges of your skill set such that you're able to go and find people who can augment that is so critical. And I just think you're right. Most folks don't do it.
And so I get, but you're ahead of a lot of folks in the sense that, one, you've conceived and originated into some manifestation a few times over in different disciplines. Fine. Yeah. But also you decided I'm going to help other people learn, because one of my companies is not going to be a company. It's going to be a company that helps people turn their companies into companies.
Yeah, that was
And
the
so I'm
idea with
curious
87. Go ahead, sorry, Devlin.
what are you teaching? What's like, I mean, like, what are you like, what's your thesis? Like you're saying, listen, I'm good at, you're in with evidence. You're saying I'm good at origination.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I'm gonna help other people originate.
If I had to like pinpoint my superpower, frankly, Dylan, it is connecting. That's really what it comes down to. So people come with an idea. So Stella was a good example of that. Stella came to us. This guy, Eugene Lipoff, here in Chicago, spectacular surgeon, pain doc, had pioneered a way to help people treat PTSD. Really amazing. Something called a stellic ganglion block. Totally amazing thing. But he was a doctor. He's not a business person necessarily. And so when he came to us, it was as much about like the block and tackle of company formation and how do you drive a demand funnel and how do you convert that into paying customers, all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, it was actually being able to pick up the phone and call a person who owned a bunch of clinics, out in Oak Brook, or being able to call a particular firm that did great PR work for someone else that I'd done in the past, and just try to assemble that super team, together. And that's in many cases what it comes down to. In many cases, people who come to incubators are actually decent operators in some cases, but they're missing that network and those level of connections. That's frankly what probably all I really have anymore is a great
Is access, you're saying?
Yeah, it's access. It's people. I can
Access
pick
and
up
the
the phone.
ability to orchestrate teams around missions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I look at myself more as a producer than an entrepreneur these days, because it really is like, how do I go and call the right people, get the right people engaged, help convince them to work with this particular person, right? Because maybe I'm super busy and like, hey, just do me a favor, do 2 hours with this guy, see if you can help him. And then generally, if it's a good fit, they get really excited and jump in. But yeah, that's I think that's really where I see a lot of the value. You can get business formation services, you can get tech help, you can get marketing help pretty easily across a range of vendors and operators out there. What's missing in most cases is access to people, access to resources, or access to folks you otherwise couldn't talk to. And that's frankly maybe all I have left in my life.
Well, no, I'm sure there's more than that. But and then if you look at your view of the creative economy in this moment, and I'm just going to tell you a story most people probably wouldn't know or think, I guess, but because of my some of my social, my friends are from, I have some friends from Russia. I live in Italy. I have friends from Russia.
Yeah.
So I have visibility to the creative economy on the streets of Moscow.
Oh, yeah.
Because they go back and forth and they're like, oh, what's going on? And everybody's like, oh, well, everybody withdrew and this, whatever happened, happened.
Yeah.
And the creative surge in Moscow was one of the biggest they've ever had, because all the empty space of the withdrawal of the Western brands has opened space for all of the young people.
Isn't that fascinating?
Have ideas to do my dress line, my shoe line, my coffee chain, my burger place, because it's not an economic collapse. The ruble didn't collapse. The money, right. There's not a financial issue. And so I'm just thinking about scarcity or the absence. It's like we're also saturated. I'm just thinking about the layoffs at Amazon, the layoffs at Meta, the contraction at the banks, and how that intuitively that's negative for creativity. But I'm not. I think that may be wrong.
Yeah, I think it is wrong, and especially if people. I think it's an interesting point on Russia. I actually hadn't thought a lot about that, but it makes total sense. Like in nature, we know nature abhors a vacuum. We know nature abhors a lack of McDonald's, and so likely they're going to have to create the Vladimir Mac, whatever it's going to be called. But I think even here, I think as people are getting laid off from Meta and from Facebook and Amazon and Microsoft and these big tech companies in particular, there is, I know a lot of folks actually, I'm still in the old groups from Microsoft on the various social media platforms. So I can see people and how they're approaching this. And it's actually fairly interesting to watch people who've been there for a long time, for example, who are getting riffed, the department's going away, whatever might be happening. And there is this level of freedom that they're expressing on these platforms, almost like I have been kind of unleashed to go do something else. And people are seeing in the economy right now pockets of need that haven't been filled. I mean, it's cliche to say right now, but the Chat GPT phenomenon, every single day you just see additional products popping up that are augmented through that platform. And that really will likely be, if you listen to Bill Gates, for example, I think he's dead on right. It's probably as big a revolution as the cell phone and the internet was in society. And I think people right now who are maybe looking for their next act or their new gig, looking at that space and being creative, I think it's a bounty that the likes of which we haven't seen in the last 25 years, frankly.
Yeah, and it's a boon for people who like to ask questions.
Well, it's what's really interesting. So there's a product I use called Rewind, which is not one of mine, but it's a product that sits on my computer and literally watches what I do all day. So literally everything I do all day is tracked and recorded, and it's just for my purposes. But like that way, I can find anything that I ever saw, a web page that I saw, a mail that I saw. I can't quite think of what it was. I just look for it. So they today launched.
That's a little crazy, man.
It is crazy. I know.
I'm going to be a gentleman. You're my guest, and this is a public interview, but that's a little nut.
Well, luckily I'm pretty boring. So, but I have two computers.
You got a record of every single web page or website you ever look at?
Every chat I have, every IM that I have, every, you name it. If it appears on my screen, this product records it. It's all personal. It's all hashed on the drive.
I got it.
So it's, but my point is they actually launched a product today, or they launched a feature today on top of that product that uses ChatGPT. So now what's actually happening is ChatGPT can look at that entire recording history and you can begin to ask questions then of your computer. Like, God, I was talking to Jules 3 years ago about something, and we were going to do an interview, but I can't remember what it was. What was that again? And ChatGPT plus Rewind will actually find it for you and surface it. So like, there's just stuff like that where we've been looking for this intelligent personal assistant for the last 50 years, and Star Trek is out there with the tricorder and all that sort of thing. And look, Siri was the first attempt at that, which was a brilliant piece of tech when it was first developed, about 15 years ago. Apple has since destroyed it. Now it's a really crappy speech recognition system. But
it's all the right intention.
It's the right intentions. It was mapping intention to action and helping you get stuff done versus just finding information. And I think we're at this pinnacle we're this beginning of this upward climb towards an innovation peak that we haven't seen in, again, 30 years, I don't think.
And when you look at your existing businesses now through the lens of how do you interact there?
Well, for certain, like even for Jetson, for example, as we think about how do we help people get better using the power of their gut, and we have this Jetson Plus program, which is the reality is it's not easy or fun to become healthier in most cases. People are lazy. That's humans. I'm not casting dispersions here. Humans are lazy biologically. We have to be lazy to conserve energy to keep ourselves going. That's just kind of what happens.
You don't have to justify it.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I tell myself, at least. It's physiological stuff, and they're not just lazy. But so getting people to make that leap is challenging. So how do we actually use things like ChatGPT to create better guidance and content for people? So, and that's more personalized to their particular situation. So when they come to Jetson Plus, for example, they can talk to a doctor, they can get the prescription, but then after that's done, what else do they do? Well, certainly writing bespoke content for each person with the human being sitting here in Chicago isn't going to scale, but we can actually leverage the power of AI, things like ChatGPT, to create that content to help people actually see the steps they need to take to become healthier, do it in an individualized way, but at mass scale. So there's just so many opportunities out there right now that allow us to use these technologies to make companies better.
And what of all the stress? All the banks, this layout irrelevant from a creative position?
I don't think it's irrelevant. I don't think it's irrelevant. I mean, I think about it a lot. We look at our companies. We look at like paid media advertising has gone bonkers, as we all know. So it's harder to acquire customers these days. We're all
because the price to purchase keywords has gone up.
Yeah, keywords, or even just the fact that iOS 14 came out last year now and broke Facebook's ability to target people effectively. So that funnel that most companies, especially in the direct to consumer businesses, used for many, many years, basically letting Facebook find the audiences for you to go and purchase your product, that all broke last year, right? So as a result, it's super inefficient to advertise these platforms these days. So there's a I would say most companies that we have right now, or that I'm involved with, or that I'm an investor in, they're all under some level of stress. It doesn't matter who they are, honestly, at this point. I mean, even the companies that are profitable right now. So one I'm involved with, that's an amazing embedded insurance company, and they're fabulously profitable, but there's still there's still terror on the exec team in some cases around like what's the next shoe to drop. No one saw SVB Bank or SVB coming, but a few folks did, but most folks didn't see it coming. And that's the most, we use it for all of our companies, right? And it's the most story bank out there, right, for startups. And to see that thing evaporate, in a matter of 2 days, I think really, even if you're doing okay, there's that in the back of your mind, something doesn't feel quite right now. And I think that is causing people to kind of rethink big innovation, taking big swings, which is a bummer because that's the time to go do that.
No, yeah, well, I would say because there's incentives for the biggest swings are right now. You just talked about the advent of chat, right?
Yeah.
All these, an interesting creative moment.
You've really got to kind of steel yourself and double down, because I think if you operate from a place of fear, you will make poor decisions right now. You really have to operate from a place of hope and not hope. Hope's not a strategy. We all know that, but certainly from a place of optimism and positivity. You have to. Otherwise, I think you will make mistakes.
Especially when you have this kind of technology that's just splashed its face down here with the chat. I mean, it's crazy. It's just crazy.
I mean, the fastest to 100 million in the history of a product. It was unbelievable how fast this thing went. It's unbelievable.
All right, Jetson is the star company. If you want to feel good and you want to feel right, Jetson is the brand for you.
Well, it is. As I mentioned, it was something I built for myself, basically. I've had MS now for, 17 years, 18 years, something like that, a long time now. And multiple sclerosis is a really crappy disease to have. And I was on the usual medications for years and years and years. Found Mark Hyman, who's a really phenomenal doctor, and he and I worked together on kind of getting it under control. And now it's gone. It's remission. It's finished. But part of that journey was really figuring out what was causing that multiple sclerosis to pop up. And one of his theses really is that there's just kind of chronic body inflammation. And so we worked a lot on the various things to drive that down. But one of the hardest parts to get right was that gut microbiome. The gut really is the second brain for the entire body. It controls so much. It's crazy. It can control your mood, your skin, your energy, how sick you get when you get a cold. I mean, literally how fat or skinny you are. The gut itself, not the stomach, but the overall gut system is this controller for the body as much as the actual physical brain is. And so when I was working on my health, I spent so much time figuring out which are the right products to take. And it was just, there weren't many out there. So we built Jetson actually to take all the learnings that I had from my journey and put them into a product that everyday Americans could actually go and pick up, because not everyone can go see Hyman or do what I did and yada, yada, yada. Right. So it was, that was the genesis. We again began with the world's only seasonal probiotic. So literally every 3 months, we create a new formulation that takes the latest science that's out there and maps it to what humans need at that time of the year and put them in a product. And so literally in the summer, it's fit. In the fall, it's like a mood-based product. In the winter, it's immunity. In the spring, it's skin. So we kind of rotate those things around. And then we also have new products like for women that are particular for vaginal health. And we have a kind of a core digestion. So we've taken this approach of how do we get gut health in a more popularized, accessible fashion for Americans out there. Because it's frankly, if you go to the aisle today, the gut health aisle at any store, it looks pretty bad. Like it's medicinal, it's boring, it doesn't actually tell you what you're getting. So our whole thesis was, let's make it more accessible, let's make it more fun, let's make it more popular. And so that's what Jetson was about. And that's why Walmart picked us up, because if they said, oh my gosh, this is a product that will actually speak to our consumers in a way that no one else has spoken to them before, and drive gut health across the country. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, and for good reason. And I can tell. I'll check it out. And it's a pleasure to meet you and have the conversation, Stefan. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
All right, now, Stefan Weitz, you heard the list. I'll give it to you one more time. I'll look at it. It's a good one. It's a good. We've got Jetson. We know we love 87, which is the incubator. Stella, and We Are Giant.
Yep.
And then obviously originally with the Bing team years ago. Well, I guess my last thing, did you ever think Bing would have a moment? It took a while.
Yes.
We used to use Bing as a joke.
I know. Trust me.
We're like, oh, Bing it. Yeah, check it. I got
I know.
And now you got your moment in the sun.
I was the butt of many jokes 10 years ago when I launched that thing. No, look, the ironic part was, I'm gonna let you go. The ironic part is when we launched Bing, this was the intent. Like, we actually launched Bing with 4 different verticals: travel, shopping, local, and I'm missing the 4th one. But we actually bought companies that were really smart around making predictions on travel prices or helping you summarize reviews for products. The idea always was to be an answer or decision engine,
an insightful machine.
That's what it always was. And we were just 10 years, as Microsoft often is with almost everything that they've ever done, just like 10 years too early. You know, and
it was used as a point of derogation. You'd be like, "Oh, that guy must be using Bing."
And which is BS, because we actually have better results than Google on most of our whatever. You know?
It's just fun to say. It's just fun to say.
I'm happy. The guys.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I wish I could take some credit, but
all right, I'll talk to you again.
All right, thanks, Dylan. Appreciate it.
Watching Bootstrapping. I am Dylan Radigan. More Tasty Live right after this.